listening to The Starting Zone, a podcast about World of Warcraft and the people who play it. And now, here are your hosts.
Well, hello and welcome to The Starting Zone, the podcast about World of Warcraft, the people who play it. Today is February 1st, 2023, and my name is Spencer Downey. Thank you so much for listening and subscribing to the podcast. I'm joined today, as always, by my co-host, Jason Lucas. Jason, how are you doing this fine Wednesday?
Spencer, hello. I'm doing well. Happy Trading Post release day to you. Not a happy Trading Post release day to Blizzard's live ops team, however. As we speak, we're down for extended maintenance. They just put out a blue post that says that they put the trading post up, it broke, and they had to take it down, and it won't be back until at least tomorrow after some more maintenance. So that's kind of a bummer. You have a big feature that you publicize so much, and then it just doesn't go live right. So
yeah.
Basically what I'm saying is we have no firsthand impressions of the live trading post and associated systems for this week, which is sad, but we'll talk about it next week, I'm sure. But yeah. That will be rolling out at some point in the next, couple days here worldwide.
Yeah, I still want to cover what's actually going to be up in the store because they did actually release a post around what's happening. So we'll talk a little bit of trading posts. We can't talk about the interaction and experience and how you get the quest or what the quest does or anything like that. We can just talk about what's on for sale, which is kind of cool to talk about anyway. So we'll dive into that a little bit later in the show. But Jason, why don't you talk about what you did this past week in the worlds of Warcraft?
Yeah, so, raid stuff, our goal for the week was Mythic Primal Council, and we did end up downing it by the end of the night on Sunday. It was about 20 pulls total. I think it was like 22 or 23, but a couple of them were like, oh, we pulled by accident, run out of the room, that kind of thing. So we'll call it 20, which really wasn't bad. The fight is mechanically not very different from the lower difficulties. It's just more punishing. So we had kind of this funny situation on Sunday because one of our best raid healers, he wasn't able to be on for raid time. He had something going on, and so we were trying to 5 heal, and that was okay. The fight isn't a real tight DPS check. It is 5 healable, I think, in our current gear, but it just wasn't really clicking, and we were doing okay, but we would get we dip, and then you'd have the splash damage going out from the axes and the conductive marks, and people would be dead. Finally, he was able to hop on right before the end of the night, and then one pull with him, 4 healing. Everybody was stable, and we downed it, and moved on with our night. So that was awesome. That felt really. The only problem at this point, as a raid leader, is that now all of our low-hanging fruit has been eaten. We pulled it all off of the low branches, and now we got to go take our lumps on heroic raz.
Unfortunately, you dipped in the middle of that, and by dipped I mean Discord dropped you for 15 seconds or 20 seconds, which was weird.
All right, what was the last thing that I said?
Well, I can roll us back. Give me a sec. You're 1 pull with him, 4 healing. You're talking about when your healer got on, who was missing. So you got 1 pull with him.
Okay.
And you downed it.
Yeah, so
let me pick up recording.
Okay.
Boop. Okay, go ahead.
So 1 pull with him, and it actually felt pretty safe. Everybody was pretty stable. We didn't have those big dips, and he was like, "Oh, don't bring me in cold for Mythic Prague," and it was fine. One pull with him, and with everybody having practiced that much, we downed it. That was awesome. It's Realm first. There's no other Mythic raiding guild. There's one other guild that has Mythic kills, and I don't think they even tried Mythic Council yet. So, doesn't speak very highly for our server, but still, it's cool to have that in the bag, and getting a Mythic raid choice out of the vault. That's pretty nice for us. The only bummer is that now we have consumed all the low-hanging fruit, and it's time to start taking our lumps on heroic raz. So that'll be what's going on this week. For dungeon stuff, I I cracked 2360 last week, and then last night I got up above 2380. So starting to move into 20s, even though I haven't timed any yet. But I feel pretty good about being able to get 2400 this week, which is that last breakpoint for item level upgrades and stuff. This week does not feel great for dungeons. We'll talk more about it shortly, but you know, it is what it is. My biggest complaint about the dungeon system right now is the continuing existence of the Valor cap. It just really needs to go. It's not adding anything to anybody's experience. I have a lot of gear that I would like to pour a lot of Valor into, and I'm doing, you know, 3, 4, 5 dungeons a week at least that I'm not getting any Valor for at all. Doesn't feel good. So that's my, you know, the tuning is what it is. I think there's some stuff that still needs to be dialed in a bit, but overall I feel like I'm moving through the system at a pace that I would kind of expect. I'm maybe, you know, I'm within that band of where I would think to be, but the Valor cap thing is really holding me back. One thing I did want to mention too, last week I was talking about how, you know, I had finished the renown system. I was max renown with all the major factions, and I was kind of demotivated to play in the outdoor world, but I still wanted to stay on top of my professions. I need to shout out Adam and WoW, who's somebody who hangs out in our Discord all the time and is like a professions guru. Adam hooked me up with a week or a checklist that tracks like how many of your weekly knowledge items you've gotten, so you don't forget to max out your knowledge every week. And that has been immensely helpful, because now it's like, okay, I can spend the exact correct amount of time doing the things that I know will grant me my weekly knowledge, and then I can either be done or move on to a different character, move on to a different activity in my life in general.
Right.
Huge help, because I'm really loving the profession system. I'm having a great time. Like, I'm doing armor crafting, and I'm making myself 418s and making 418s for my guildies and stuff, and it feels so good. It's so much fun to do for me. But you know, I don't want to blindly grind for my knowledge items. I want to know, like, what do I still need to get for the week, and where do I need to look for it? And having a tracker like that helps immensely. It gives me a checklist, like a little bit of motivation to go out in the world and do stuff, and without just kind of pointlessly grinding through stuff. So that's been awesome.
No, it's always nice to be able to allocate your time resource as best as you possibly can. That's how I've always felt of late. So yeah, anytime you can get a week or a spreadsheet or something that helps you track how you want to spend your time that week in the game, because there are things that you want to get done that aren't necessarily something you're super excited for doing, but you want to be sure you get them done. And one of those for me this past week was I scared myself. Was the trade post. We came in today's show notes. This happens every now and then, where we come into the show notes and you have this realization of, oh, this thing was like, it happened last week, and did I miss it? And the trade post was one of the things that we're chatting about today. Obviously, with it being down for maintenance, we're not going to get a chance to really dive into the experience of it. But I think it was was this morning for sure. But I also had on Thursday or Friday last week, I had a moment where I was like, shoot, did I miss the trade post? I better be sure I get on before the end of the month, because it rolls over every month. Because every month you get 500 more tokens. I don't want to miss out on 500 tokens for the month. I got to get to the trade post. Of course, trade post isn't open, so you can't get the tokens yet. It's just the staggered release of things sometimes gets me, man. It's sometimes when they're like, hey, we do this big content release, but next week we'll do this other thing, which I like that they're doing, because they can easily address what actually broke, as opposed to throwing 11 things at the wall and trying to figure out which one broke stuff. It's easier to figure out what broke when you stagger a release like that. But every now and then it creates a scare for me of, I don't want to miss out on this particular thing. There's a lot of cool rewards that are popping up in the trade post, which I want to get into. So yeah, it's cool. It's cool, and don't miss it. And man, oh man, you can easily scare yourself if you aren't paying attention to timelines.
Well, I had a moment yesterday after maintenance. I logged into the game and I got my vault, and I did my lap around Valdrakken and got my weekly quests, and I'm like, all right, well, what should I do next? Let me go check out the trading post, I guess, before I get involved in anything else. So I went over to Stormwind, and I went over to where the trading post is, and I'm like, what the hell? There's no NPCs here. What's happening? And then I realized it was January 31st. So
yeah,
I had a bit of a moment myself. There's also been some weird behavior where when you open your adventure guide, it defaults to the trading post page, but it's all blank. Right. I ran into that as some kind of weird bug that has been in the last few days. So yeah, the staggered releases and just the amount of changes it does. Like, I mean, how many times lately have I missed out on a micro holiday or something because I just didn't? It wasn't on my radar for what I was doing that day.
Yeah.
I mean, the game is so old and huge at this point. There's so much stuff going on a rotating basis, even that yeah, stuff can definitely fall through the cracks.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, let's dive into what's going on this week in World of Warcraft. All right, so this week is a Battleground bonus event. Means the Sign of Battle buff is up, where honor gains from Battleground objectives and wins are increased by 50%. And then if you win 4 random battle rounds, you get 5 marks of honor and 175 conquest. So if you're a Battleground buddy, then maybe this is something you want to hop into and take care of for the week. Otherwise, you got your Aiding the Accord, you got your Siege on Dragonbane Keep, your Community Feast, your Shakar Hunting Grounds, your Primal Storms, your Cobalt Assembly rep, your Obsidian rep, your Weekly Profession and Artisan Consortium quests. It's just a lot of stuff that you can still work on outside of that if, Battlegrounds aren't your thing that are going on this week. As Jason just mentioned, there's so much happening in the game at the moment that sometimes you lose track of the 1 or 2 things, and then you regret it later because there was 1 or 2 things that happened to slip through the cracks. So we do our best on this show to sort of keep you informed as to what is happening so you don't miss out. Speaking of not missing out, Azure Vaults is actually the dungeon quest for the week. Both times. So you have Azure Vaults and Azure Vaults Part 2. It's weird to say it that way because I want to say part as French as well. But anyways. But.
I put that in the notes because I'd like to do my little movie sequel title jokes. Yeah. And I was like, oh, this is like, it's part French. Like, this is going to potentially rewire his brain.
Maybe just a little bit. Because I have Je parle en français aussi. So it's one of those things where like it blends in there. Anyways, PvP quest. We got arena skirmishes and rated battlegrounds. We also have the War Mode Sparks of Life quest for people to hop into and jump into. We got PvP Brawl for the week being Temple of Hot Magoo, which is one of my favorites overall. This is Temple of Hot Magoo with players who are able to throw the orbs that they pick up around to other players as sort of like a hot potato. They also reduce the respawn timer so that if you get knocked down, you get back up that much faster. So yeah, it's a fun one. I really dig Temple of Hot Magoo. If you're looking for a fun brawl for the week, it is super fun. So check it out.
Very fast paced. Yeah. The short death timers, I think, are what make it really fun. Cause, that's what I'm not, as we've talked about many times, like I'm not, a very dedicated PvPer, but I am the kind of player that like when I'm dead, that respawn timer is really frustrating. I'm probably just going to respawn and go die again, but like I just want to go do that, and you can do that this week.
Well, Temple of Hot Magoo and Temple of Hot Magoo in general as a battleground is a tough one because typically the battle is constantly rotating around the actual arena. So when you die or when you pass out, whatever you want to think about it for your character, you get brought back up in one of the 4 corners as far as the resurrection spots go. And so you can actually get a res spot that's on the complete opposite side of the arena of the rest of your team, which means you can res up and then have to run through the enemy team to get back to your team to group up, which is really dangerous. So the faster respawn timer just alleviates some of that frustration of being out of the battle for so long that things have shifted so much that you're now like in a really out of position situation. I've often found myself just like dying once or twice trying to get back to my group to actually be part of the group to be able to, death ball around or move around as a team. So it's tricky with that one. So I really like Temple of Hot Magoo. I think it's a lot of fun. Plus, who doesn't like getting an orb up to a whole bunch of charges and throwing it to a friend who gets gibbed instantly because they get hit by a fireball or something? Yeah. Oh, boy. Anyways, weekly world boss for the week. Liskanoth, the Future Bane, the big ice proto-dragon in Thaldraszus. You can get yourself your plate waist, mail head, leather wrist, cloth feet, or a mastery haste cloak. This is all $3.95 stuff, and man, it's a great thing now that we got Catalyst stuff online. You're able to start changing some of these pieces over, getting some tier pieces, or at least some of the maybe your leather wrists are going to be better statted if you change them over, or you just want transmog and you can make transmog happen that way too. Always nice to see. Mythic. Oh, go ahead.
Don't forget this boss is in the Primalist Future. So if you're looking for the boss and you're like, what? I don't understand. I know it's supposed to be here. Where is it? It's not spawning. You have to click the sand time portal thing to go into Primalist Future, that's where it is. Also, the Catalyst quest is still kind of a new thing. I think might be worth touching on it in context of the world boss. Every week, in order to earn your account-wide Catalyst charges, you have a fill the bar quest to do quote-unquote group content. Mm-hmm. World bosses count. They count as 20% of the bar, and you can do them on multiple characters. It's account-wide progress, right? So I have 2 level 70s. I did Liskanoth twice. I got 40% of my bar filled for my Catalyst charge.
Nice.
Also, as it happens, if you listen to this during the first weekly World Quest rotation this week, there's an epic group quest in Primalist Future to get Primal Chaos from killing Primalists. That also grants 20%, and that's also per character. So you're already in there. You're already in Primalist Future. You're already killing the world boss. You go around and fill up the Primalist bar, and you get another 20% that you can also do on both characters or, multiple characters, etc. So I was kind of messing around with it a little bit yesterday since I actually had time to process, what to do with the weekly quest. Unlike last week when it first opened, when it was like, okay, well, maintenance went right up until raid time. I have to get on this quest and go to raid. Not every group quest, like world quest, will grant progress towards it, because there's some that have like the dragon portrait around them and they have, slightly better rewards. The enemies are slightly more dangerous. They apparently don't count. But world boss counts, and I guess ones that have like epic quality rewards count. So keep that in mind. And honestly, like, it kind of makes me want to get my druid or my paladin leveled up so I have one more world boss too, and just to get my catalyst charge a little faster.
Oh,
that's kind of weird, but like I want to play those tunes anyway, I guess. So it's like I don't really hate the way that they have done the catalyst this time. Like, earning the charge isn't too odious, but it is something that I do want to try to do as efficiently as possible after reset, so I can start moving my stuff around.
Yeah. All right, Mythic Plus Ifixes for the week are Tyrannical, Spiteful, and Quaky, meaning bosses have more health and inflict increased damage. When slain, fiends rise from the corpses of non-boss enemies and pursue random players, and periodically all players emit a shockwave, inflicting damage and interrupting nearby allies. So Tyrannical, Spiteful, Quaking. Obviously, Tyrannical and Quaking and Tyrannical and Spiteful don't actually sync up at all, which is great. Spiteful and Quaking kind of do, in the sense that you may be trying to avoid a Spiteful and you have to walk through a Quaking, which would be really unfortunate if that's the case of what you run into, but it's rare. I think overall this is probably one of the better Tyrannical weeks you'll see in general. The only thing to consider is Thundering and Quaking, where you might have some more stuff to avoid with Spiteful and with Quaking for Thundering when you're trying to find your buddies. It is area denial. It is space denial because you're running away from someone. It is a tight area. Any kind of tight hallway, tight corridor becomes tricky because you might not have not just Quaking down the ground, but you also have ads that are targeted on you and chasing you. So it can make that more difficult. But I think overall, this is actually a pretty nice week for Tyrannical. There's no Fortifieds. You don't deal with Fortified Spiteful. There's no affixes that really line up with Tyrannical and make it a pain in the butt. So I think it's good. What do you think, Jason?
It's okay. I think it's middle of the road. I think it's very dungeon dependent, because some of these dungeons are not very conducive to Spiteful. Temple of the Jade Serpent. I'm looking at you.
Yeah.
Also, I'm finding Quaking to be a lot more difficult and disruptive in this season than as we've previously known it. And that's for a couple reasons. Thundering is one, as you sort of identified. Like, sometimes you need to clear a Thundering, and Quaking is going to make that more difficult.
Yeah.
This is a good week to try to like snap clear Thundering for the most part. Trash is going to die really fast. I did a couple dungeons last night, and we were just kind of blowing trash up on our way, which is nice. But then you have the Spiteful thing, which kind of slows you down a little bit. And in some of these places, it's hard to position around it. You kind of can't get around it. So you got to hope you have a stun or something, and your back line can run up. And Quaking has just some really bad overlaps with certain boss fights, and especially in some of the older dungeons. It's very disruptive on, again, Temple of Jade Serpent, especially first boss, Water Speaker, and last boss, where you want to stack up to kind of funnel all those ads into one spot. And there's already area denial with the other debuff that the boss puts on you. Shadow Moon Burial Grounds as well. You have first boss, you need to stack on the white moon runes, and then third boss, you need to stand in the corpse piles when he's doing the inhale, and then last boss, you have those very tight windows to get through when Bone Ritual goes out. Like, these dungeons were not designed with Quaking's existence in mind, so some of that feels kind of bad. Overall, I think if you're working your way up, like, yeah, you're gonna have like relatively minimal disruption on many bosses in the pool. Especially if you're working on you have to like KSM or something. I mean, trash is gonna die really fast, so that's nice. It's just important to have like a plan in mind for how to handle the spitefuls. Like, yes, you can stand there and you can DPS them down while somebody kites them away. You can do that. It is going to slow you down. If you can position so that your back line is up with the tank and can move forward as soon as everything starts dying, great. If you have like some kind of route or something you can apply to them so everybody can run away. They do timeout and expire. So you have some options. You just need to have a plan for what you're going to do and kind of how to meet your goal for whatever dungeon you're doing. I would say it's a bit of a mixed bag this week, but Quaking to me has been an eye-opener so far this season. Quaking used to be, in recent seasons, Quaking was a thing that was kind of a joke affix at a certain point. But because of the seasonal and because of some of the dungeons in the pool, Quaking is suddenly very disruptive feeling for me.
Well, I mean, I can certainly understand that if someone's quaking and you're trying to clear your debuff and you're running over towards them, you're having to hesitate. And that's the 3 seconds that you need to actually clear your debuff before it goes off. Then it goes off and hurts your group. Like, that's just,
yeah, probably not the weak to min-max Thundering would be my advice. And again, like, you're mostly going to get Thundering when you're fighting Trash, right? Because that's the most time you spend in a dungeon. Trash is not fortified and doesn't really have any other buff except they pop out at Ghost when they die. So play it safe. That would be my advice.
Yeah, agreed entirely. All right, Lunar Festival. We talked about this last week, but it is live now, so be sure you're going and honoring your elders. There are new elders in the Dragon Isles for you to go and honor with. So if you are, in fact, someone who's like, hey, you know what, I want to get the new achievement and make sure I've honored all the elders in Dragon's Isle, feel free to head out and do that. There is also, obviously, pets with the Lunar Lantern and Festival Lantern, as well as the holiday boss Omen, if you're someone who's looking to knock out a big doggo in Moonglade. And then as far as toys go, the dragon costumes are the big thing Jason likes to highlight, because this is the body and the rear end and the front end of the dragon costume, so you and your friends can all sort of team up and do like a big dragon line. Did any do any of this in Raid this past week, Jason?
No, you know what? I don't think anybody really even realized it was happening. That's what I should do tonight, is just like put on my dragon costume before we get started and see what happens.
It is one of those things where like one person does it and they'll be the front end, and then someone else will make the back end, and then like a bunch of people want to hop in the middle as far as the body goes.
It just kind of emerges, right?
Like
it's sort of like the
line.
Thing when people are standing around waiting for an outdoor event to happen, everybody starts getting on the same mount. It's like that same kind of phenomenon.
Yeah, exactly. It's people they like being involved. There's also the Everlasting Firework for Horde and Alliance, if that's something you're looking for, and of course the Lunar Elders Hearthstone. Those Hearthstones came out a while back. They did like a whole year of everything gets a Hearthstone, and so if you're looking for the Lunar one, you can get that one too. And then I guess last but not least, just don't forget that there's the Venthyr Covenant, as far as the Elder that shows up inside the Venthyr Covenant in the Ember Court. If you want to go back to Shadowlands for 20 minutes, 30 minutes this week, and actually do that event, you can. You'll get the bonus reputation and everything else as well, so be sure you're checking that out. And then, if you have any of the transmogs with the festival dresses or pantsuits or crowns or whatever, you can transmog all those this week. So take advantage of this time of year where you're able to do that, if that's something you're into. We got Darkmoon Faire coming up. Darkmoon Faire is going to be this Sunday, the 5th of February, until Saturday the 11th. So if you're looking to get some profession skill ups, if you're looking to have some bonus reputation or experience, take part in the races, go see a band, do some, dance competition stuff, maybe play some Minesweeper, whatever it is you want to do some pet battles, get some more tokens, buy yourself a dirigible. Feel free to take advantage of Darkmoon Faire kicking around, because it's coming up this Sunday.
Yeah. If you're doing professions, like, this is required. Like, you have to do this. It's too lucrative for you to pass up, right? It's like, It's like what, a third of an entire extra week every time it rolls around in terms of knowledge points for each profession, something like that. I mean, it's not a ton of knowledge that you get. It's not like one of the 15-point books or something, but still, like, it's also skill too. And I know for me, I definitely got bonus skill ups through both of the first two Dark Moon fairs we've had since Dragonflight started. And I figured that I would probably be stuck on 96 or whatever skill until this one. But it so happened that I managed to somehow find some public crafting orders for blacksmithing on my little server. So I don't need the skill points anymore, but I know a lot of people who do.
Yeah.
So yeah, you get skill, you get knowledge. It's not very involved. It's pretty easy stuff to do. It doesn't take very long. So if you are doing professions, I'm going to guess you probably don't have every knowledge point for your professions that you could possibly have at this point. So yeah, this should be on your radar. Go do it on Sunday. And the rep bonus is amazing for it's XP and rep. So it's amazing for leveling because leveling's so streamlined anyway. An extra 10% is a lot. If you're working on major faction renown, it applies to all that stuff. It applies to Obsidian Citadel rep if you're doing the dragons. It applies to Cobalt Assembly rep if you're doing Cobalt. So if you have any of that stuff out there to grind or anything you want to knock out, Sunday and beyond, next calendar week is when you really want to hit that hard. But yeah, I mean, don't forget it starts, late night Saturday essentially. So get in there and get those hats and make it happen if you have stuff that you want to work on.
Yeah, for sure. Love is in the Air is kicking off soon. It's going to be February 6th until 20th. So if you're someone who wants that love rocket, or I guess however they chose to rename it, it's certainly something you can go after. And man, it's let the grind begin for those who have multiple characters that want to do this. Yeah, good luck. Coming up.
Yeah, maybe use your Dark Moon Fair rep XP bonus to level up some more characters so you can get more daily shots at the Love is in the Air mount. It does seem to be like the one that is the most elusive from the holidays for some reason. Like Headless Horseman definitely was for a while, but it seems like the people who really care about that over the last 15 years have basically gotten it. The Brewfest ones don't seem like they're that rare, really. This one just has eluded people for many, many years, and it'll be interesting and most likely tragic to see some friends and acquaintances of mine working on this over the next couple of weeks, logging in on however many tunes they can spare and coming up empty. I hope they get it. I hope this is the year.
I'm really surprised, but also really curious as to what so first of all, surprised that it didn't happen this month, but curious also if it ever happens in the future, whether they put that mount on the trade post. That's the big thing for me. That's like,
could you imagine?
In there. If they just this year they went, you know what, 500 tokens, here you go, get yourself and just see what happens with people. Like everyone would have one all of a sudden. Everyone's dream would come true of not having to farm it anymore. But also all the people who got it might be a little bitter that they spent so much time trying to get it and they could have just bought it.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. I feel like that stuff is, I feel like that attitude is not as prevalent in WoW as you might think. Like I think some people, a small cross section of people, get really upset about stuff like that.
Yeah.
And most people are just trying to have fun, and they like when people are also having fun. So I don't know about holiday mounts on the trading post. That would be something.
Yeah.
Of course, maybe they just crank it up and let it drop more this year, because who's using a mount? What are you using a mount for if you're playing Dragonflight? Like you won't even see it. So that'd be the ultimate troll, is like, well, you can have it, but you're not going to see it for the next 2 years. So
well, you'll see it at some point, because at some point they did mention that at some point there'll be normal flying. Like at some point they are going to
that is the
turn
plan.
That on. But,
that is the plan.
Yeah, it's a ways down the line at the moment. I don't even remember if it was inside the future lookout thing they put out, whether or not they mentioned it was going to happen.
No.
Yeah.
I mean, it will feel so bad though, unless you're just trying to hover while you AFK or you're waiting for a spawn or something.
Yeah.
But otherwise, even when you go back to old world content now and you have to fly to get somewhere, it just feels terrible. It's like, why am I going so slow?
Yeah. Anyways, all right. Hotfixes for the week. Mobile auction house now properly displays Dragonflight enchantments. So if you're someone who was worried about that, guess what? It's fixed. There you go. Druid class, the protector of the pack healing bonus to regrowth and damage bonus to Moonfire has been increased by 60%. So the note here is, previously this talent was gaining extra benefit from various modifiers on the druid class. With the patch, we changed it to grant the exact bonus listed in the tooltip for clarity, and to reduce the swings in value. However, this left the talent feeling a lot weaker, and we're increasing its spell power substantially to compensate. So in other words, hey, this might look like a ridiculously huge buff, but because they actually fixed the thing that made it feel strong, they then had to buff it to make it feel the same as what it was before. So it's kind of a trade-off. So I want to clarify this note, because it's one of those cases where you can easily look at it and be like, holy man, but it's fine.
Mm-hmm. It's a big number. That's a big number to see on a buff.
60% is big.
But I think there's some wisdom to probably cleaning up these interactions. Like,
oh yeah, no, 100%.
I'm of like two minds about it. Like, it's cool to have these synergistic choices that kind of build on each other to give you some really big effect. That's awesome. It does seem like there was a lot of that in the initial kind of pass on the druid talent trees. But also, I think you want stuff that reads well to a player, and they can just look at it and understand, like, okay, what benefit am I getting from choosing this talent? And I think that was kind of the goal here.
Yeah, it's part of what we talked about last week. Last week we were talking about I was talking about at least, how I wish the tooltips were a lot clearer so that people could easily understand the decisions that they were making, or even the symbiosis that happens between one skill and another, and how they sort of work together, and sort of demystifying that, right? So the more they can do things like this, where they're like, hey, you know what? There's a lot of these back-end interactions you might not really notice going on that makes this ability powerful. Cleaning that up and going, the number on this thing when you mouse over it is big, so you know it's big as far as a bonus goes for you. That's great, because often you might see something like, oh, 5% damage increase. That's like, it's nice, but it's on a spell that I use, every now and then, and it's not my main damage dealer. It's not very big, but what you don't understand is that 5% actually is substantially more damage, because there's all these back-end interactions that work with it, right? So the more they can go, yeah, you know what, as opposed to just putting 5%, we clean up all this back-end stuff and go 65% increased damage on this ability, and you go, wow, that's a big number. I have to get that, right? Like, it's clear to the player.
Yeah, I think like you don't want those subtle interactions to not exist, but they also shouldn't like predominate, class design. I feel like for me, like, it's cool to have those little moments where, the light bulb goes on for the player, and it's like, oh, if I take this, and then I do this, they work together, and this cool effect happens. But this is all part. I mean, I feel like druids are on a real roller coaster right now, especially across all the different specs. Like, there's more changes coming up even, and it's yeah. But this was the big thing that hit live last week anyway.
Yeah. All right. As far as the raid goes, Vault of the Incarnates, we got Sennarth, the Cold Breath. Sennarth no longer casts Chilling Blast immediately before entering Phase 2. That's nice. It kind of sucks to get massively slowed as you transition to a new phase.
Well, the really bad part about it, right, is a Chilling Blast is the thing where everybody gets a little circle around them, and then it explodes for damage. Phase 2 is where Sennarth reaches the top of the platform, and you're on this big icy rectangle that you can't totally stop moving on right away. So, like, before it wasn't giving you any time to get set up and kind of get arranged on the platform and get ready to go. If you encountered that overlap, it was just like, well, as we're all sliding down the platform trying to get ready to do Phase 2, I hope we don't overlap each other too much.
And blow each other up, yeah.
Yeah, the timing is a bit more generous now, so that's nice. I mean, I've only done this fight up to Heroic. I haven't done it on Mythic, so I don't know like how much harder it gets. But the fight to me has felt like a gimme on Heroic and Normal. Like it's tuned very favorably. This could be a pain point though. Like this just felt like a thing that didn't need to happen.
Didn't need to happen. Yeah, that's the big thing. And Blizzard also went through and is basically starting to clean up all the Mythic content stuff now. They want to see more teams killing bosses. So Dathia, Kurog, Razageth all got substantial Mythic nerfs. We're talking about like 10% damage off abilities, health totals being reduced on some of the ads that exist in these fights. So some pretty large changes. There was a heroic change to Razageth where Storm Surge's shield effect is reduced by 10% on heroic difficulty, so just having that much less shield to sort of get through is really nice. And then they also made Volatile Spark's burst cast time increase to 6 seconds from 5 on heroic, so you get a little bit more time on the Volatile Spark's burst that's going on.
Yeah, some nice changes. I mean, the pretty heavy nerfs, I would say, to Dathia and Karag, just like big health reductions. You know,
Yeah.
double-digit percentage point health reductions on bosses and ads and all that stuff. So that's good. Razageth, pretty big mythic nerfs, I feel like, and I mean, obviously, you know, the boss has been out for
8 weeks.
Yeah,
We're getting there.
yes, it's like 2 months. Yeah, about almost 2 months now, and yeah, I think this is week 8 of the raid or something. It hasn't been touched up a whole lot. Like, obviously, they had some kind of emergency nerfs that had to go in around the time of the race when it was clear that the math just wasn't lining up.
Yeah.
Which is not unusual. They bring this stuff out at a level, for right or wrong, they bring it out at a level that they only expect like 5 guilds to be able to kill it at. And then they start dialing it back. We haven't seen that much dialing since then, so they're turning some knobs here. Very light touch on heroic, I feel like, and heroic is, I mean, Razageth is a much harder and much less frequently killed boss than any other boss in heroic by like a pretty wide margin. So I do feel like that probably means some nerfs are warranted. Like, you want the last boss to be the hardest boss, but you also have to have killed all the other bosses to get to it. So, you know, the steep drop off on heroic looks really weird sometimes, and Razageth had a pretty steep drop off. So, you know, Storm Surge, obviously, that's a non-negotiable part of the fight. You got to have the juice to break that. So bringing that down, you know, 10%, that's pretty nice. And given an extra second, I mean, it's a 20% increase in how long burst takes to cast, right? 1 second doesn't sound like that much longer, but in the heat of the moment, it actually is a lot. It just gives you more time to, you know, to avoid those casts going off, give people a chance to maybe help somebody out, react to something else that's going on, and throw a CC or an interrupt or whatever. So, I don't expect that they're done tuning the raid, but yeah, pretty nice little round came in recently.
Yeah, I just like seeing this stuff because they're all thinking about timelines, right? If we're 7 weeks, 8 weeks into this raid, how many teams should have killed this? Where do we want to see these numbers at? Okay, let's start making this more available because they know that, you know, in 2 months' time from now or 3 months' time from now, the next raid's out. And so it's like, well, how much time do we, because really, and this is something I've spoken about a lot, you need to have a certain amount of ebb and flow for players to have that period of time to farm content. It needs to feel fun. The game needs to feel fun. And if you go from Prague to Prague to Prague to Prague, it's not. There isn't enough of a break for people to get a breather and actually enjoy the game and have that relaxing time where they go from, you know, maybe raiding 2 nights or 3 nights a week to raiding 1 night a week because they can actually clear the whole place in a night and have a good time and then do whatever else they want on the rest of the week and have a bit of an alleviated break, or use those other nights for something else, doing other fun content or doing different difficulties or doing alt runs or something else that's fun that doesn't feel like the weekly quote unquote chore, if you will, to a certain degree for some players. So it's nice to have them spice things up a little bit by reducing the difficulty, helping more teams get through their prog and get to that farm state so that they can have 3 or 4 weeks or 5 weeks of like a relaxing, you know, let's have fun on a Friday night kind of feel.
Are you suggesting that people should play World of Warcraft to have fun?
I am.
I can't imagine that.
I know it's a very volatile topic.
You figure, like, conservatively, new raid on live in like July, and I think that's reasonably conservative estimate, right? So you're probably looking at some form of PTR testing here and there in maybe as early as May. It's already February. Like, the increased pace is good for sure, but when you have these kill rates on these last bosses 2 months in, it's, you know, it's time to start turning the knobs. I think that's really that's what it comes down to. Like, we do want the increased pace. We want more stuff to do in the game, and even if it's little updates like the one we got last week and the one that's on the horizon, and it's not like a huge season roll, that's still, you know, stuff you want to check out. Maybe you want to do on multiple tunes, whatever. You know, your time, where you want to spend your time in game changes over the life of a season and the life of a patch. And I think having that time to ramp down is important to a lot of players. You can't, I don't want to be doing Prague every single week forever. That's
exactly.
You know, it's just not, a lot of times, like when you're deep into a season, you're playing well to relax, hang out with your buddies that you play with, and just, you know, kill bosses and hang out, you know. And if you're in that mode of like, well, okay, how do we squeeze out like 5% more DPS in this phase? Like, that's fun while you're solving the puzzle, and then once the puzzle has been solved a couple times, you don't want to have to deal with that anymore. And that was one of the things that drove me nuts in Shadowlands a lot, because I had to solve the Denathrius puzzle or the Sylvanas puzzle over and over again, every week, and that was kind of a bummer.
Yeah, well, it's also the feeling of when you show up to raid wanting to sort of be like, okay, let's get through this regular farm content so that we can actually get to the fun stuff that I want to get to. Inside, a lot of cases for me, the prog is enjoyable, but it gets to the point where everyone's too serious all of the time. That is what it feels like. You want to be able to finish prog so that you can get to the point where people can relax and joke and talk during a boss fight and have a good time for a few pulls until it's like, all right, let's get serious and kill this boss if we've been screwing it up. But otherwise, it's a relaxing night. Prog is like you show up and everyone has to be focused for everything that you're doing all of the time for me. And so it's too much serious for too long is what it comes down to, right? Like you want to get through prog, you want to finish it so you can get to farm so that you can have those more enjoyable, relaxed, fun experiences as part of the balance for the game. You enjoy the prog experience. It's just if it goes on too long and you just always have prog because you go from one prog to the next as far as raids go. I don't know how many more times I can say prog during this last chunk of time, but then you don't get the break that you need. And so I like having the mix up of having the break. I'm glad to see the nerfs.
Some people get burnt out, It's that's exactly what happens. Yeah. You just get burnt doing that. So I don't know. I don't know how much in danger we are of Blizzard shipping new raids too close together. Probably. I mean, the worst we saw was probably in BFA, right? In that kind of middle 100%. Section when you had Dazar'alor into Crucible, into Eternal Palace in the span of like 7 months, even though Crucible was a small instance, it was still hard. It took a lot to prog through it because it was hard to learn. That was probably the worst we've seen, and I don't know. I don't think we have any indication that that's kind of the path that we're on right now. I would expect a traditional 8 to 12 boss raid in season 2 at some point in like midsummer. So I think that timing's pretty good. But just keep touching them up. I'm happy to see Raz nerfs start to come in before I've even touched it. That makes me feel good because usually the big end boss nerfs on heroic come in right after my team kills it for the first time.
Yeah, we had some similar things happen with a lot of mythic bosses at the end of Shadowlands, where we would kill it, and the next week it would get a bunch of nerfs, and then a whole bunch of teams would kill it the next week and be right there with us, and we're like, we were 1 week slower, this would be so much easier. But yeah, all right. The other hotfixes we have going on here is the experience granted by enemies associated with Cobalt Assembly has been greatly reduced. And the note on this is, from the start, Cobalt Assembly was intended to be a max level feature, and Sundered Flame enemies should not have granted significant amounts of experience. Having a max level player kill enemies while in a party with a low level player who stands around and does nothing, but receives experience and reputation, is not the sort of gameplay we want to encourage, so they've adjusted the experience rate rather than removing it completely to encourage players to level in more fun, interactive ways, while still leaving this as an option that is no longer the best option. So again, you never want the best option for someone to be get carried. It's just, you never want that to be the best option for players. You always want them to feel like the best thing for them to do is be engaged in the game and be doing something in the game. So I'm glad they go in and they look at these sorts of things and go, you know what, if we just have people who are standing around in a group with someone who's max level, who's doing their farm that they have to do anyways, and this other person who's standing around is just getting levels off of it, that's not an experience we want to promote for players. So, yeah, good fix.
Yeah, I mean, I know like some people are disappointed in this because it was like easy power leveling. Although if you take this straight from 60 to 70, then you have kind of a useless tune until you get carried through some more stuff, which is a whole other problem. But if you did it just to get through a couple, levels in the middle there quickly, then it could be nice. This is the kind of stuff that just always gets dinged up, though. Remember, there was a similar thing, I think, in Shadowlands with Torghast, right? If you were like in a like a max, it had a max level character could like run through and level up a lower level character once they turned on. I guess it was in 9.1 or whatever when they made it. So was it 9.1 or 9.2 where you could level up in Torghast?
Yeah.
They had every time they add these things that like grant XP, There's always something that's like,
Hey,
that's too much. We got to tune that down. Or, it's scaling funny in a party. We got to touch it up. So no shocker here that they changed this.
Look, I remember when pet battling was added to the game, all right? The
Yeah.
ultimate way to level your character was to run around pet battling because you received almost a level per battle. It was insane, the actual experience gain.
It was, yeah.
And
back
so
then it was amazing.
You could like it was for like a 2-day period or 3-day period where people were just like, you'd be in like just out front of Ironforge or something, and it would just be a swarm of people running around pet battling any pet they could possibly find. Because you just leveled up so quickly. It was silly. So yeah, whenever something like this gets added in, they have to sort of keep an eye on experience and what player behavior is and how much it changes, and is it a fad that's going to go away soon, or is it like a consistent thing? Is it the best way to do it, quote unquote, right? Anyways, they also
That's the other thing too.
yeah,
I mean, we just said, is it the best way to do it? Like, there shouldn't be a correct answer to like how do I level, really fast. Like every activity you choose should be granting like a somewhat comparable amount of benefit to leveling, if it grants XP. So this was way out of whack.
Yeah. They also made it so the Falling Star Flinger and Falling Star Catcher, which are the toys from this past Wintervale event, can now only be used outdoors. I really want to know the story behind this. Anyone know the story behind why this is now only available outdoors? What was happening indoors that was causing this to be an issue?
I have no insight. I didn't try it. I wonder if this is why we've had all this maintenance lately. People are flinging too many stars indoors.
Yeah, maybe that's what it was,
They had to fix it out.
Just keep breaking windows, man. That's the problem.
Yeah, that's why. It's like, another 4-hour maintenance. Got to fix the windows.
Yep. Anyways, they also removed the holiday requirement for many holiday transmog rewards. This just means you're able to actually throw on a bunch more transmog throughout the year. It's no longer required as part of, the holiday has to be happening for people to wear it. So if there's, a Santa hat or something you wanted to wear that might not be required anymore, feel free to throw it on.
Yeah, it's funny. I didn't really think they would ever change this, even though they've obviously very recently they've altered the rules around transmog a lot, and they've done a lot of other stuff that I guess I thought they would never do. But I felt like they always wanted the holiday stuff to be easily accessible, easily transmoggable, only while that holiday was running, to have it be kind of thematically like in line with what else was going on in the game. And I can kind of see the logic there, because you want to have a consistent look for the game, and you want to create this kind of cohesive visual experience for players and create this kind of world. But the game's going to be 19 this year. I don't know. I think just letting players do whatever they want is probably good when they can do it. And so it's February. If you want to wear your Hallows End stuff, then mog it, whatever. Make your character look like what you think it should look like, and have fun with it. In a perfect, curated little world of aesthetic and game design merging, then you wouldn't do that, I guess. But I don't. Is it really worth it anymore? I'm coming around on it. I think this is probably just good, because most people aren't probably going to do anything super weird, but the people that want to do weird stuff are going to love it. So that's cool.
I would also go, let's let the players police the other players on this one. All right. If one player has an issue with another player wearing their Wintervale outfit in the middle of July, then how about they have an interaction, a conversation about this, right? Why not have a little dude, do you recognize what you're wearing and what the weather is and what time of year it is? Like, have you seen my tree mount? It's fresh and green right now. It's not, doing any of this Wintervale stuff. So, and then they have a conversation. It's an interaction, right? Like, let's let the players have that moment.
Yeah, I think it's good. I mean, years ago I might have scoffed at it a bit more, like, why do you want WoW to look so silly? Everybody's running around and with Easter Bunny ears on and hitting their enemies with frying pans. But like, I don't know. I find it hard to get too tuned up about that anymore. I think these are good changes, and I think most players just like want their tunes to look cool, and they put cool new armor in every season, and then you want to collect that stuff, and it kind of shows off what you've done in the game. And some players just want to make themselves laugh. So there's no wrong answer there.
Exactly. They also made the 5th challenge of tier more enjoyable and group friendly. By adjusting the amount of progress rewarded by Iridius's power core on elite denizens of tier hold. It was 20%, now it's 35%, and it means you can now only need to use 3 of them as opposed to 5 of them. And 4 more enemies were added as viable targets for Odysseus Power Core the Ancient Protector, Fenran, Overloading Defense Matrix, and Overseer Stone Tongue, as well as the Power Core's cast time was reduced to 1.5 seconds from 3 seconds. Oh my goodness, does that ever make a big difference? When you half a actual cast time on that, whew. So overall,
this quest was, it was obnoxious at launch, right, to get this 5th spark, because especially last week, there was so much competition, right? Everybody's trying to do it. You have this tight window that you have to use this, 3-second cast on in order to zap the thing. There's not that many enemies that are eligible, and they're all just getting, just turbo farmed all day long.
Yeah.
I'm glad they changed this like kind of fast. A lot of players are going to have done this forever at this point, so it doesn't really matter, and you won't have these kind of conditions around this quest. But at first I was like, I couldn't figure out what to do because I'm in the area where I'm supposed to be, and I have this item, but I can't use it on anything, and it's not doing anything, and everything I mouse over doesn't say it's part of the quest, and I'm like, what am I missing here?
Yeah.
And so obviously there were some, I think the quest ended up sort of this thing that was like, oh, it's, there's these particular enemies you want to go find, and it's supposed to be sort of this cool exploration thing, but in practice, it's like everybody just wants their sparks and they want to move on to the next thing.
Right. No. In OHare Plains, they fixed some issues that prevented the Field of Ferocity Redux Master of the Hunt fights from permanently getting stuck in an unusable state. Not good when you just can't complete something.
Yeah, I hope this is actually fixed now forever, because this has come up a bunch, right? Field of Ferocity is the Ring of Blood, essentially, for Dragonflight, where you have like this outdoor arena where you summon in these like gladiator style fights and stuff. And so there's like a weekly world quest for it. It's usually pretty lucrative, but sometimes it just breaks and you talk to Woden and you can't, or is it Gurgthok? I can never remember which one is which. I think Gurgthok is the goblin, right? And it's like you talk to Gurgthok and nothing happens, or you can't talk to Gurgthok, or you talk to Gurgthok and something happens, but not the correct thing happens. That was going on a lot. And it's like, this is like a 500 gold world quest or something, or sometimes it has like a decently impactful item for a world quest reward, like a piece of gear. Field of Ferocity itself is like it's a thing you're going to quest through as you level up through an RN plane. So I don't know if the one-time questing version of it was having an impact on the world quest version of it, or vice versa. But yeah, that was kind of frustrating, because like it's a quest you want to do, right? I mean, everybody likes Ring of Blood, and it's cool having a world quest that echoes Ring of Blood. And yeah, you roll up and the goblin's just stuck, and you're like, oh man, well, maybe later.
Yeah, we'll hopefully have something later on that fixes this, or I'll phase and it'll be fixed wherever I phase to, or whatever it is. Yeah. Storm's Fury, they fix an issue that can cause players to continue to gain stacks of warmth when in the temporal conflux after the event is over. They also fixed an issue where with the portal capture, so that the portal occurs faster based on the number of nearby players, and that caused the lighting to rapidly change when entering or exiting the heat source. Anything that changes the lighting dramatically for me in the game is very, like, it's disruptive. It actually pulls me out of whatever I was doing.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm glad they got that. Resisting the Storm can now be completed when in a raid group. The hit points of all bosses in the Storm's Fury event have been significantly reduced, and the health of Winter's Aegis enemies during Glacus, Winter's Wrath boss encounters has been significantly reduced. So making those ones easier as well. Anything that makes your sort of like weekly farm or weekly chores a little bit simpler is really nice. And anything that is less jarring to me is also really nice. I remember the in-game cinematics that were like flashbangs going off because you get a white screen for a moment at the top of them. Oh my god, was it ever jarring to have happen. There was a boss fight that had it. You had to like look away from your screen. I remember what boss that was.
Yeah, I know the effect you're talking about, but I can't think of what the name of it is. But yeah, I mean that that stuff seems like in this case like it wasn't a design choice, it was a tech issue. And yeah, I actually haven't done Storm's Fury at all yet, so I don't know how impactful these changes have been. I haven't caught one because it's like rotating, right? And so when I've thought about checking it out, it's not there, which that's one thing that I'm kind of feeling a little pain from, I think, in this expansion is the outdoor world is super cool. Like there's so much texture to it and it looks nice. It's just a nice gameplay space to hang out in. But what I'm running into frustration around the rotating event schedule and caps. And it's like I'm supposed to have a designated amount of fun at designated times. And that I feel like they should loosen that stuff up a little bit. Let's get the timers on the rotating events down a little bit, and let's remove some caps.
Yeah. Okay, let's talk Trading Post, because, I mean, it's not live yet. Well, it went live and then broke, and so they took it down, and so it's going to come back at a future maintenance. So we got a little bit of time here before it actually goes live. But I want to talk about some of the stuff that's for sale this month, because there's some pretty cool things. First and foremost, Celestial Steed. So it's a store mount. It is actually going to be available on sale this month. It's 900 Traders Tender, which means you basically have to do your monthly 500 plus the additional bonus stuff you get if you were looking to actually pick it up. It's going to be one of the things that's available. There's also Garlock, which is this little absolutely adorable, if you wanted to adopt a ogre child, you could have a little ogre child. It's 750 Traders Tender. And yeah, it's literally a little baby ogre who's, got his little like shield on for his belt and little spikes on his wristbands, and it's adorable. Sorry, Jason, I thought you'd want to comment on how adorable he is.
Oh no, yeah. I never really thought I would see a like an ogre in an adorable context, but yeah, it's it sort of begs the. I don't know. I started thinking about it. And I'm like, well, this is like a child. Why is this my pet? But then we have like the squires and stuff. I don't know.
There's some weird moral lines in this stuff.
It's a humanoid, right? It's not an animal, which is like really. But we have some humanoid pets, as companion pets and stuff in the game. But I don't think we've ever seen it like a child ogre model in the game before.
No, we haven't.
I do think this is a first in that regard.
Yeah. There's also the Swashbuckling Buccaneers Slops, which is basically an ensemble, a pirate ensemble. It's very, BFA. If you were someone who was keen on that expansion, this fits right into that. There's an iridescent Warlock Cloak. This thing's only 75 Traders Tender. It's like this pink to purple fade with gold inlay in it. It's very cool looking. You'd certainly stand out running around town with this thing on. There's also the Vagabond's Rosy Threads. This is another outfit. It's an armor set, and it actually has a cloak that has the hood up on it, which is kind of neat. So you can have like a hood that then transitions to a cloak down your back. And then there's the Wander's Rosy Trappings, which is the same thing, but with the hood down. And so each of these are 100 Traders Tender each. But it is kind of one of those neat ideas where if you were actually trying to play out your character having their hood up when they're moving through town, trying to avoid people, that kind of idea. But then you get home and you put your hood down and you're able to like talk with people and whatnot. You can actually do that, which is kind of neat. So I like the ideas behind that. They have the Infiltrator's Bandolier as well as the Operative's Bandolier, which are bandoliers that have like potions on them and throwing knives and all that. One of them's a silver and red. The other one's a black and gold. Really nice combos of colors on them. They actually go across your back, sort of like the backpacks do. They have the Rosy Corsage and the Fetid Corsage. So it's basically what you'd think. Sorry, Fetid Bouquet. So the Rosy Corsage you wear on your wrist, it's flowers on your wrist, which I know a lot of people are going to be all over as far as transmog goes, because it's very cool looking. 100 Traders Tender for either of these. The Fetid Bouquet is just, what you'd expect, a dark colored with, rotten kind of feeling bouquet that you can carry around with you. They have Fury of the Fire Lord. I mean, it's self-explanatory. It's a one-handed Ragnaros mace, like basically. Pretty cool looking. This thing's badass.
It's a flail, though.
It's a flail. You're right. Yeah,
it is a one-handed mace, but it's got the chain. It's got that flail effect that is very rare and sought after in this game.
Yeah.
So, I could see if you're doing like certain paladin mogs or something,
dude,
like Judgment. This is like a prot paladin in Judgment with this thing in hand. That could be really cool.
Yeah, no, this thing, as Jason said, because it's a flail, is actually 750 Traders Tender, so it's quite a bit for you to actually earn up. Remember, you get 500 start of the month, so you have to do a little bit of work this month to be able to get up high enough to be able to buy this. And these are the things that are up for February, which means that we're expecting more stuff or different stuff to roll over in March. Doesn't mean we won't see it again, but it might mean that it's moving away, which means you have to sort of be like, okay, my goal this month is to get 750 Traders Tender so I can get this flail because I really want this flail, right? that could be what ends up happening for you. They have the Squire's Etched Warhammer. This is a two-handed mace that just looks like a Squire's hammer. It's not super special in some way, but it's unique in its own way in that it's a, basic looking two-handed hammer.
I feel like that really stripped down kind of look, right? Like you're a simple adventurer or something. It looks like starter gear kind of. It's got that kind of vibe. But some people really like that. That's what they want. And we kind of have moved away from options like that over the years. So this is a new like high poly version of something like that.
Yeah, it's realistic versus high fantasy or fantasy kind of idea. Shards of Frozen Secrets. This is daggers, or a dagger that is just sort of like an ice shard looking thing. And they also have the Azure Scale Worn Longbow. Very cool looking bow. I can't remember the model that this resembles, but it has some similarities in that it has this handguard that has like graphics all over the actual swirling handguard itself. Some of these things, remember, also, we're just looking at still images. Like some of these things animated would look really cool. I don't know how much movement happens on some of these things or if effects come off of them. But I know that the Shattered Void Spire, which is a staff that's 500 Trader's Tender, which is very much something that reminds you of the Eye way back in the day in Burning Crusade, as well as the Gladiator's gear back then, had these staffs that were a handle you held onto that was almost like the dual lightsaber kind of look. And in this case, it's broken shards that sort of extend out from either end of it. And I know that the ones in Burning Crusade actually rotated and spun and moved around. So I imagine this would be something very similar to that. So a lot of the animation for this is something we can't speak to yet, but I think could be really cool depending on how they move or what effects are on them. So I can't imagine the flail not emanating some sort of, glowing red.
Yeah, you would think so. I think the some of the stuff, if you're a blue dragon enthusiast, if that's kind of your aesthetic, then the dagger, bow, and staff on offer here might be in your wheelhouse.
Yeah.
Some pretty cool stuff in terms of what's on the inventory. Nothing really sticks out to me as like, this is the thing I'm definitely going to buy. I do kind of like the hooded cloak look is a really cool option to have. We haven't seen stuff like that, and if not ever, not in a really long time. I don't know about the kind of bright purple though. That doesn't quite speak to me. My character is already purple, so I need something to contrast it a little bit, right? But yeah, this is the beauty part of all this stuff coming together because of changing up the transmog rules and opening it up. You can use this stuff in ways that these types of items wouldn't have been useful before, and really customize your character's look. I do like the Buccaneer slops is pretty cool too. Like, not for my warrior, but I do like that whole pirate theme for, like a rogue or something. So yeah, there's some cool stuff on the store this month.
Yeah, well, and keep in mind, right? So you get 500 just for, doing the initial quest at the start of each month. You can then earn an additional 500 through doing things like battlegrounds, participating in holiday events, Mythic Plus dungeons, raids like that. You can get the extra additional 500 tender. And then because of this being the launch of the whole system, you get an additional 500 this one time only if you already have Dragonflight purchased on your account. So this month, like right off the bat, you're going to have 1,000 just for logging in, doing the initial quest, because you'll get the retroactive 500 that you're owed because you picked up Dragonflight. You'll get the 500 for the month for doing the initial quest. You can earn an additional 500, which means like that mace is like super available. It only actually uses half of your total tender you can earn this month to pick up that mace, the one that's a flail. So like this is a great kickoff for this, and it's certainly worth hopping on and trying to get the trader's tender earned up. And again, more rewards for doing things that you're already doing and playing in the game that make you feel like those activities are valuable, right? Jason might not feel so bad about his Valor cap not being where he wants it to be because he's still earning trader's tender for those extra ones that he's doing as far as Mythic Plus dungeons go, and is feeling like he's at least capping that out for the month. So it's cool to see. Okay. In development, let's see what's going on in 10.0.7 because PTR launched for that. We do have the Heritage Armor for Orcs and Humans that's going to be in 10.0.7. When that kicks off, there's going to be a return to the Forbidden Reach, and we got the Monk class expanding into new races. So we're going to be seeing monks available for Goblins, Lightforged Drene, and Worgen. As far as you can have your Werewolf Monk, which is kind of a crazy thing to be kicking off. I think Lightforged Drene is the one that doesn't fit there the most. That'll be a kind of an interesting thing to see. But anyways, I like more viability and more options for this because it gives more creative ways for players to try and explore the game and choose what they want to do. And they're also doing a refresh on the Recruiter Friend. So, there'll be more updates about that in the future. But in general, it's an exciting thing for 10.07. That Heritage Armor is something I really want to check out. I know there's going to be people out there who want to make their Goblin Monks for sure. And then, obviously, the Recruiter Friend stuff coming back is going to really help out a lot of players. So, cool to check out. I'm glad they're kicking off some notes.
Yeah, not like this isn't like a massive patch. They told us they're going to do smaller patches, and I like it when they do smaller patches because a big patch can take however long it takes. So having little stuff to pop up here and there throughout the process is great. Forbidden Reach is a pretty cool zone when you do the Drekthir intro. So I'll be interested to see what we're going to be doing there and what the upshot is in terms of rewards and stuff.
Yeah.
Like, why do I want to go there? Heritage Armor, I think, is one of my favorite things they've ever added to the game. The orc and human, the screenshots of the Heritage Armor that they included look really nice, and it seems like there's some variation, as they've done with some of the other sets, where it's like, well, you get a whole set, but there's a couple different pieces you can swap around. That's nice. I'm going to have to investigate the situation with my human and orc tunes and see where their reputation with their home cities happen to be. And yeah, I think it's kind of weird that there's stuff that can't be monks, I guess. I mean, you make a good point about Lightforged Draenei. They got a whole other thing going on, but
yeah.
I am tempted to possibly either re-roll my monk or start a new one and play a Worgen monk because I love that idea. I kind of thought when Worgen came in that it should have been a class. It should have been like a style of play and not like a species that you played as. Because you're a werewolf and what do you need? Why are you holding a sword? Like there's something to this day, something a little weird about that to me. So I don't know. I think I might want to check one out because I love that idea. It makes me think of the old Shining Force games on Genesis. You had the werewolf characters. They were the Beastman class, and there were these unarmed fighters that was so cool. I loved that when I was a kid. I would love to maybe mess with that in this one. And I'm surprised that they're doing another Recruiter Friend refresh already. I feel like the last one wasn't that moldy. Like it's still really good the way the current one works. So
I might be taking a lot from it. Yeah.
Yeah, there's like a ton of rewards baked into it and everything, and like it's good for both the recruiting and recruited friend. So I think doing more stuff like that is awesome. The biggest thing, I hope they just open it up to, more recently lapsed players, I guess, because it used to be like you had to be out for 2 years or something, or 3 years. Like, dude, make that like 6 months. It's 2023.
I'd make it 4. Yeah.
Yeah, like make it as low as you can possibly make it because reacquisition of players is a huge part of how they need to market a game this old, and people have so many other options for what they want to do and play and whatever. Like, it's not unreasonable that somebody's going to play WoW for a patch and then not play it for 2 or 3 or 4 patches, but maybe they want to play like maybe they want to play every like big patch, and then that's I don't know, it's a 6-month window before the next one, right? So they play the patch for 2 months and then they cycle out. Well, sweetening the deal to get them back in and check it out, like that would be, I don't see any reason not to market the game like that, especially since what you're mostly giving away, like with the current system, you get a couple months of free game time here and there, but you're mostly giving away just like in-game assets, right? Like to the recruiting player. So, or, some small benefits to gameplay in terms of, streamlining playing together.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't cost the company very much money at all to run the program. So yeah, that would be, I guess, my big wish list thing for the refresh is just make it way more accessible. Get the time you got to be out way down.
Yeah. Yeah. And bring your friends back who were there for the first 3 or 4 weeks of the patch and then sort of fell off. Get them back for the next thing, right? Did that 4-month period or 5-month period being what the window is. The other 2 things I just want to mention is there's 16 new customizations that we're looking at for dragon riding, as well as 6 new races that they're throwing in. So lots more dragon riding stuff as expected. They're going to continue the stuff on through the entirety of the expansion. So yeah, bunch more dragon stuff. All right, Twitch drops. They're continuing them on this year. Dragon Flight Twitch drops are going to be happening today. Actually, it just started about 30 minutes ago. And it's going to run until February 5th at midnight. This is all in Pacific time, so midnight Pacific time, so 3 a.m. Eastern. And this is basically you go and you watch a Twitch stream from one of the participating channels. And if you watch it long enough, then you earn the Goblin Weather Machine toy that exists. This is the toy that puts like a stormy cloud over your head that snows on you and does lightning and whatnot. So if you're someone who wants to take advantage of this, you just need to, link up your Twitch account with your BNet account and go to one of the participating streams and watch it. You can, find all the information on that in the show notes and the post that's there. But I wanted to highlight that the Goblin Weather Machine is up for grabs if that's something you want to pick up toy-wise.
Yeah, and Twitch drops are awesome. Of course, it's not great to start them when live ops is in shambles in NA.
Yeah.
But I think didn't this happen last time they were trying to run drops?
Yeah, it did.
It was like, this is the reality of a game like this. But yeah, it's kind of a tight window. It is a cool reward. So I'm glad they're doing it. I mean, I stream on Twitch, and Twitch drops have been really good for my channel in terms of engagement and just people hanging out and making the streams fun and then getting something cool for their trouble. So that's part of the reason why I like to do it. So it's cool, and I'll be streaming tonight, assuming I have a server to connect to and a game to play.
Yeah.
I love it. I hope they keep this coming. I guess the problem is how much of old stuff from the TCG or whatever can you keep bringing back before you run out of it, or you get to something really sensitive.
Yeah.
But we're not there yet.
No.
One thing I wanted to point out from the PTR notes we got so far was about the changes to the Balance of Power quest line for the artifact appearances. This was a very long process that you had to do throughout Nighthold, right? There was a lot of quests you had to do. You had to do the Nighthold raid. You had to do all this stuff. And at the end of it, you got a unique artifact appearance. And it was awesome. Many, many cool ones were included from Balance of Power, but it was a big investment to do the quest line. That's going account-wide. So if you've done it on a character, you have the base appearance unlocked. And if you want to unlock the other alternate colors, you could do that on any character. And they give the example, for example, completing the requirements for certain color variants on your hunter will also be unlocked on your priest that's on the same account. I know people who spent a lot of time doing multiple Balance of Powers. I knew somebody who did every single class at the time, all 12 classes, did Balance of Power all the way through 12 times to get all the appearances. This is going to be awesome. There were so many cool appearances included here. So I guess what I would say is if you've been working through this, here and there to try to get an appearance unlocked, but you already have Balance of Power done, you could probably just give yourself a vacation from that and you'll have the appearances soon.
Yeah.
If you've never done it at all, you should probably look up what these are. And if you think they're cool, you might want to start working on this so that you can have all of these appearances unlocked in your account, by the time that you finish that stuff and 10.0.7 comes out, because this is a huge change, man. There was a lot of times where I was like, I really got to do Balance of Power on the Druid because it's the Guardians, the Neon Bear, right?
Yeah.
Like that's one of the coolest bear appearances. I never ended up doing it, but it sounds like I'm not going to have to. So I love that change. It's going to be huge for people who are into collecting stuff but don't want to do the drudgery of doing Balance of Power 12 times.
Yeah, exactly. All right, there were changes to item upgrades for War Mode and Primal Storms. Jason, you want to go over this just a little bit as to how this affects players?
Yeah, so this was something that actually I heard about from people in our Discord before I saw this post, actually, and they were like, oh, yeah, they moved the NPCs around. I was like, oh, that's weird. There's a post from Kyvex last week. We have a few adjustments to item upgrades in patch 10.0.5 that we want to outline and clarify. War Mode and Primal Storms gear are no longer upgraded by taking gear and upgrade currency, trophies of Strife, Storm Sigils, at the previous vendors, Militia in the Gladiator's Refuge and Rithelshi in the Sapphire Enclave. These items now use the other item upgrade vendors that Valor, Honor, and Conquest gear have used, such as Carixian in the Gladiator's Refuge. War Mode and Primal Storms gear obtained at level 70 prior to this patch will still be upgradable. However, War Mode gear obtained pre-level 70 before the patch will not be upgradable. And new pre-level 70 gear obtained after the 10.0.5 patch went live will be upgradable. There's a bug fix in patch 10.0.5 to the Drakebreaker's breastplate there before 10.0.5, it incorrectly cost 7 trophies of strife to upgrade. It now costs 10 trophies of strife to upgrade. This was done to make it consistent with other chess pieces. So some changes to outdoor gear, right? And the way that you can upgrade it. Be aware if you were doing it before last week and you were taking your storm sigils over to the vendor with the item and upgraded them to the 385 pieces, and you couldn't do that last week. It wasn't a bug, really. It was just not a widely publicized change. You need to go into the Gladiator's Refuge, find that item upgrade NPC, and you can get your item upgrades there. So, there's way more stuff to do with that because of the new Storm event as well. There's new pieces of gear and everything. So, another avenue for Storm sigils. So, keep that in mind. You were not experiencing some kind of bug that is going to be resolved. You need to go to a different place and use a different UI element now.
Yeah, it's changed. Just want to be sure everyone's aware of it. Not nothing that's super major. Oh my God, we need to riot in the streets over this kind of change, but something that's worthwhile mentioning so players aren't confused when they go and try and spend the currency that they have. Okay, with that, we want to take a moment to thank our patrons. I want to give a big shout out to all of our patrons, but in particular, a group that donates at a particular tier that we appreciate very much. They contribute a lot to our show. They help us improve on the content we create. And I want to shout out Arajian, Celian, Kapawi, Max, Mibble the Mighty, Nick, Shorel, Viper14, and Zalius. Thank you so much for everything you do for the show. It means a lot to us and helps us keep the show, running. Right now, a lot of bills just sort of came up, and so we were able to cover all that with all the support from our patrons. So thank you all so much for everything you give and everything that you contribute to the show. It means a lot to both of us. Our Patreon is live over at patreon.com/thestartingzone. You can check it out there. And a big shout out and thank you to our newest patron, Castle. Thank you so much for hopping in and supporting the show. And obviously, we are still working the plans out for 2023 for patron contribution as far as what we want to do with time for you guys each month and how that's going to be spent best between Jason and I. I think there's going to be a meeting that we'll put on the books for next week that we'll sort out a lot of that stuff with. So, yeah, it'll be good. And looking forward to it. But thank you again to all of our patrons.
Yeah, thanks, patrons. The support is huge. It means a lot, and it's been great. I mean, it's a privilege to do the show for you all on a weekly basis, and your support really helps us prioritize it and make it the best that we can make it. So, thank you. We are sounding like a bit of a broken record on the 2023 stuff for the patron program, but I feel like you and I are both at this sort of moment that we have not experienced since we've been doing the show together in terms of like the outside pressures on our lives and jobs and everything else that's going on. It's been a challenge in a way that it hasn't been previously. So we're kind of navigating that. I do apologize for kind of the delay on having this conversation and sort of moving ahead with wherever we're going to move towards. But it's been a challenge to get these last few shows out, the last month or so, in a way that the previous 6 years have rarely been. So I'm hoping that the end of that will be in sight before much longer. But for now, it just is what it is. We're just trying to do what we can the best way that we can do it. So we appreciate your patience with that. Hopefully soon stuff will start to come down a bit.
Yeah, we definitely appreciate all of you and dealing with the Tuesday record that we did consistently for so long, and then it's shifting to being Wednesdays and occasionally Thursdays, and then back to Tuesdays and sometimes a Monday, and that's what this past month has been, and that's just a really good sign of how much we're sort of struggling to maintain our regular schedules at the moment, just with this new year throwing a lot of real life twists at us. So. Like I said, we're as Jason said, we're hoping that everything settles down in the next couple of weeks and we can get back into a good rhythm and have a lot of, just get back to where we were, which is what we're hoping for. So, yeah, we'll see how it all goes. All right. Hey, folks, if you've enjoyed this episode of The Starting Zone, consider heading on over to your iTunes or Apple Podcast and leave us a 5-star review. They really help out our show. It's a great way to support our show. And this one comes in from GBT7 from Great Britain, entitled Great for All Levels. Says, I love this show. Like most, some weeks I struggle to fit as much World of Warcraft into my life as I'd like. These guys help me navigate content from where I should focus, farming to big boss tactics. All classes are covered and a must for Altaholics and serious raiders alike. Well, thank you so much, GBT7. We really appreciate you leaving us the 5-star. It means a lot and helps the show out a lot. And I'm glad you're enjoying the show. And yeah, we try our best to keep everyone in tune with what they may or may not be missing out on this week, so they don't miss out on anything at all. And don't have the panic moment like I had with the trading post I described at the top of the show.
I know. Yeah. And sometimes we do that and then I forget to do stuff I wanted to do anyway. So
Yeah.
you never know. But yeah, great to hear from you. Thank you for taking the time and for writing in. And I'm glad you're enjoying the show. It means a lot. I mean, this is our mission statement about, how we do the show and how we approach it is like, what's going on? What should we do? What's the best way to do it? What is fun to do? What is rewarding to do? Where's all that stuff kind of converge? That's what we want to bring to you, and that's what we want to talk about. So it's always nice to hear when it's working out for you. So thanks for writing in.
Yeah. All right. That wraps up episode 563 of The Starting Zone. If you want to check out show notes for this episode or leave us a comment on the show, you can head on over to thestartingzone.com, the official website for the Starting Zone podcast. If you want to contact the show or leave us your feedback, you can email us at thestartingzone@gmail.com or reach out to us on Twitter, or you can join our Discord over at thestartingzone.com/discord. Just click the link there and you can pop into our Discord channel and, chat and hang out with everybody over there. If you want to get your hands on some TSC gear, you can find that over at TeePublic. That's teepublic.com/stores/thestartingzone. Got shirts and mugs and sweaters and stickers, and it's all comfortable stuff. So check it on out. And Jason, where can folks find you on the internet?
The best place to find me is over on Twitter. You can find me over there at Shieldwald. And you can also find me streaming WoW over on twitch.tv/Shieldwald and occasionally youtube.com/Shieldwald. My upload has not really been cooperating for co-streaming and sometimes not even streaming at all lately. So, but streams are Tuesdays, Wednesdays, Sundays, 7:30 Eastern. I will be streaming tonight if everything goes according to plan, so you can get some drops if you want to hang out with me tonight. We'll do some raid and keystones and stuff. And yeah, the streams, it's fun times just doing end-game stuff and then kind of hanging around. So come say hi over there too.
Yeah. Trying to find me, you can find me on Twitter at Spencer_Downey. I also have a Twitch channel over at twitch.tv/SpencerHD, as well as youtube.com/@SpencerHD. And with that, for Jason and myself, we want to say thanks for listening, and jobs done.